My brothers and my sisters, lean in close, because what I'm about to teach you is not just a lesson for your ears, but for your destiny. There comes a time in every person's life when growth demands separation. There comes a time, hear me, when elevation requires elimination, and I came to tell you today, walk away from these people. Some people are not necessarily evil. They're not criminals. They don't wish you direct harm. But they are dangerous to your purpose, and that's what makes this so deceptive. Because when you think of someone toxic, you expect a villain. But the people who drain your purpose don't always come dressed in red with horns and a pitchfork. Sometimes they come as your best friend, sometimes they look like family, sometimes they sit with you, laugh with you, and even pray with you. But just because someone is present doesn't mean they are purposeful. You have to understand this. Not every connection is divine, not every relationship is God sent, and when you're carrying something valuable, your purpose, your destiny, your anointing, you have to become discerning about who you let get close to it. Because people who do not understand your purpose will unknowingly, or sometimes intentionally, pull you away from it, and it won't always be loud. It might not be a big betrayal. Sometimes it's subtle. It's in the way they always downplay your dreams. It's in the way they roll their eyes when you talk about vision. It's in the way they plant seeds of doubt in moments when you need faith. Purpose is fragile. Vision is sensitive. When God gives you a dream, it's like a seed, and that seed needs the right soil. If you plant it in toxic soil full of jealousy, competition, fear, or distraction, that dream can die before it ever sees the light of day. And the sad thing is, many people aren't failing because they don't have potential. They're failing because they're surrounded by the wrong people. They're sharing destiny with people who don't even believe in them. Some of the worst damage to purpose doesn't come from enemies. It comes from unhealthy alliances, the wrong conversations, the wrong energy, the wrong influences. You were excited about the business until they started speaking fear. You were fired up about the idea until they reminded you of your past failures. You were ready to move forward until they made you question your worth. That's what happens when you give people access to your purpose who were never designed to carry it. You've got to learn how to recognize the drain. Not every connection is fruitful. Some are draining. Some people will drain your energy, your passion, your focus, your momentum. And they'll do it slowly, subtly, until you're operating at 30% and wondering why you feel stuck. You're not stuck because God isn't with you. You're stuck because you keep pouring into people who never pour back. Purpose requires protection, and one of the ways the enemy tries to steal your destiny is by sending people into your life who look harmless but carry hidden sabotage. They distract you with drama. They keep you locked in cycles of people pleasing. They create a false sense of obligation, and before you know it, you're spending more time trying to manage people's emotions than you are pursuing your calling. Let me tell you something powerful. It is not your job to carry everyone. If someone consistently drains you, disrespects your purpose, or diverts your focus, you have a right, no, a responsibility, to walk away. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to make a scene. But you do have to make a choice. Because if you don't create boundaries, you will keep bleeding in places where you were supposed to be building. And I hear someone saying, but they've been in my life for years. Longevity doesn't equal loyalty to your purpose. Just because they were there yesterday doesn't mean they belong in your tomorrow. It's not about history. It's about destiny. And sometimes God will expose who's draining you by showing you how much more alive you feel when they're not around. Pay attention to that. You were created for something significant. You have gifts. You have talents. You have dreams buried inside of you. But if you continue to allow people who don't value your purpose to occupy sacred space in your life, you'll never see that potential come to pass. You'll stay stuck, frustrated, numb, spiritually tired, but if you can find the courage, the wisdom, to walk away from those who drain your purpose, you'll begin to notice something shift. You'll feel lighter. You'll hear God clearer. You'll move faster. You'll stop second guessing yourself. Why? Because the noise will be gone. The weight will be lifted, and your soul will finally have room to breathe. Let them go. If they don't respect your purpose, they don't deserve front row access to your journey. Your life is too valuable to be spent trying to convince people who were never meant to understand it. Walk away, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Not with hate, but with healing. Not out of spite, but out of alignment. Because when you walk away from what drains you, you create space for what builds you. One of the greatest tragedies in life is when a person with vision tries to thrive in an environment full of people who refuse to grow. It's like trying to plant a seed in concrete. No matter how much water, no matter how much sunlight, the ground itself is too resistant. And some of you are struggling not because your dream isn't real, not because you're lazy, not because you don't want more, but because you're surrounded by people who have chosen to settle, and they want you to settle too. Let me tell you this, growth is a decision. It's not a gift, it's not an accident, and it's not automatic. Growth happens when you are intentional about leaving behind who you were so you can become who you were born to be. But when you're constantly around people who are content in comfort, who refuse to challenge themselves, who fear the unknown, it starts to rub off on you. Their mediocrity becomes your ceiling. Their excuses become your limitations. Their fear becomes your hesitation, and before you know it, you're shrinking to fit in places you've outgrown. You cannot rise while you are tethered to people who are committed to remaining the same. You can't take flight if you're dragging anchors behind you, and some of those anchors have names and familiar faces. They're the ones who say things like, "You've changed," like it's a bad thing, but the truth is, yes, you have changed because growth demands it. Purpose demands it. Destiny demands it. And what they call changing, God calls evolving. The danger of staying connected to people who refuse to grow is that their stagnation begins to stifle your progress. Every time you try to take a step forward, they pull you into another conversation about the past. Every time you try to dream bigger, they remind you of limitations. Not because they're trying to protect you, but because your desire to grow exposes their desire to remain comfortable. Your hunger makes them uncomfortable. Your vision shines a light on their complacency. Let me be clear. Just because you love them doesn't mean you can carry them. Just because they've been with you doesn't mean they can go with you. Some people are not equipped for your next level. They can't handle your grind. They can't digest your discipline. They don't want to pay the price you're willing to pay. So they sit still. They make excuses. They distract. And the longer you stay tied to them, the more you have to choose between keeping the peace or pursuing your purpose. Growth isn't always about what you learn, it's also about what you leave. And sometimes you've got to leave the crowd that refuses to move. You've got to walk away from circles that celebrate being stuck. If the people around you are allergic to change, suspicious of progress, and resistant to development, then you are planting your future in barren soil. And no matter how great your potential is, it cannot thrive in a toxic environment. It's not pride, it's wisdom. It's not betrayal, it's obedience. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You're not walking away because you're better than them. You're walking away because you're being called to be better than you were yesterday. And if they don't want to grow with you, you have to be okay growing without them. That's the challenge. Because loyalty can be dangerous when it's not paired with discernment. You want to bring them with you. You want to see them succeed. You keep hoping they'll change. But what happens when you're the only one growing? What happens when you're running toward your future while they're still stuck reminiscing about yesterday? Eventually, you have to make a decision. Will I keep shrinking myself to stay in this room, or will I walk out and find a room that stretches me? Will I continue trying to drag people who don't want to move, or will I let go and allow God to send me those who are moving in the same direction? The people you surround yourself with matter more than you think. Your atmosphere impacts your appetite. Your circle affects your capacity. If you are always the smartest, most driven, most disciplined person in your group, you are in the wrong group. You need people who sharpen you. People who challenge your excuses. People who inspire you to go harder. People who push you toward destiny instead of pulling you back into comfort. It's not easy to outgrow people. It hurts. You remember the memories. You think about what they meant to you. But growth is not sentimental. Purpose is not emotional. Your assignment is too important to keep delaying it for people who don't even want to leave the starting line. Don't let loyalty become your limitation. You are not responsible for someone else's decision to stay the same. You are responsible for stewarding what God placed inside of you. And if the people around you refuse to grow, you owe it to your future to keep moving anyway. Walk away not with arrogance, but with awareness. Walk away not because you stopped caring, but because you started maturing. Walk away not because you've outgrown love, but because you've outgrown limitation. Because if they refuse to grow and you choose to stay, eventually their comfort will kill your calling. Manipulation is one of the most subtle and dangerous forces in any relationship. It doesn't always look like control. It often disguises itself as love, concern, or loyalty, but make no mistake, manipulation is bondage, and when someone constantly uses guilt to keep you tethered to them, what they're doing is not caring for your soul. They're holding it hostage. There are people in your life right now who do not empower your growth, who do not celebrate your progress. But the moment you try to create space, set a boundary, or pursue your own purpose, they start manipulating your emotions to make you feel like you're doing something wrong. That's not love, that's control. See, true love sets you free. True love respects boundaries, but manipulation thrives in confusion. It wants you unsure, second, guessing yourself, apologizing for growing, for healing, for changing. Manipulators won't say, "Don't succeed." Instead, they'll say, "You've changed since you started that business." They won't say, "I'm jealous of your growth." Instead, they'll say, "You don't have time for me anymore." They dress control in emotional language so that you feel obligated, guilty, and ashamed for putting yourself first. Let me tell you something powerful. Guilt is not a sign that you're wrong. It's often a signal that you're being controlled. When someone loves you, they want what's best for you. When someone manipulates you, they want what's best for them, even if it comes at the cost of your peace. And you've got to start recognizing the difference, because the longer you stay entangled with guilt-based relationships, the more you delay your healing, your peace, and your purpose. Manipulators love history. They'll remind you of everything they've ever done for you. They'll bring up the times they were there for you, the sacrifices they made, the secrets they kept, so that you feel like you owe them something. But love doesn't keep score. Love doesn't hold your progress hostage to its past kindness. If someone truly helped you, they'd celebrate your growth. They wouldn't weaponize your gratitude. People who manipulate with guilt don't want partnership. They want control. And they don't want your best. They want access. They want to know that they can still pull your strings, that with one message, one phone call, one well-placed sigh, they can make you come running, apologizing, explaining yourself. And if you don't recognize the pattern, you'll spend years trapped in cycles of people pleasing, constantly editing yourself so someone else can feel comfortable. Hear me on this. It is not your job to dim your light so others can feel safe in the dark. It is not your responsibility to shrink so someone else doesn't feel small. You were not created to be someone else's emotional caretaker. You were not placed on this earth to carry guilt on your back just so someone else can walk taller. The truth is, manipulators are often wounded people. They operate from fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of inadequacy. And instead of dealing with that fear, they use guilt to keep people close. But your purpose cannot be held hostage by someone else's unresolved trauma. You can have compassion without being controlled. You can forgive without staying stuck. You can love people without letting them dominate your emotions. And let me say this to someone who's struggling with walking away because you feel bad. Freedom will always offend bondage. The moment you start setting boundaries, manipulators will act like you're being selfish. When you choose peace over drama, they'll accuse you of being cold. When you choose purpose over pleasing them, they'll call you ungrateful. That's the strategy. If they can't physically stop you, they'll emotionally guilt you. But you have a right to peace. You have a right to space. You have a right to change, to evolve, to protect your mind and your heart. Walking away from manipulation isn't betrayal. It's survival. It's obedience to the calling on your life. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to justify it, and you certainly don't have to apologize for it. Some of you have been stuck in emotional prisons for years, afraid to step out because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. But hear me today. Your freedom is worth it. Your mental health is worth it. Your purpose is worth it. You can't be everything God called you to be while you're still tiptoeing around people who only want to benefit from your brokenness. It's time to rise. It's time to shake the guilt off. It's time to reclaim your identity. If someone cannot support your growth without making you feel guilty for pursuing it, then they are not healthy for your journey. You don't owe anyone your joy. You don't owe anyone your destiny. And you certainly don't owe anyone the sacrifice of your purpose on the altar of their insecurity. You can love them from a distance. You can wish them well without carrying their emotional baggage. And if walking away brings peace, clarity, and healing, then that's not rebellion. That's restoration. So today, let this be the turning point. Release the guilt, break the emotional chains, and walk away from anyone who confuses manipulation with love. Jealousy is one of the most toxic energies you can allow near your purpose. It doesn't always show up with loud accusations or obvious attacks. No, jealousy can be quiet. It can smile at your face and still curse your progress in the same breath. You need to start paying close attention to the people who seem excited when you're broken, but go silent when you're blessed. That silence is not peace. It's resentment in disguise. And some of you are wondering why you feel emotionally tired around certain people. It's because you're constantly performing in front of people who are secretly hoping you fall. There are people in your life who love your struggle because it keeps you dependent. They love your pain because it keeps you relatable. But the moment you begin to win, to rise, to shine, they get distant. They get cold, they stop calling, they stop showing up, because deep down, your growth disrupts their comfort. Your success becomes a mirror that reflects their stagnation, and instead of being inspired, they become bitter. You've got to recognize that not everybody is clapping for you from a pure place. Some people clap because they don't want to look like a hater. Some people support you publicly and resent you privately. That's why discernment is critical. Not everyone who walks with you is walking for you. Some are walking with you just close enough to keep tabs on you, just close enough to appear supportive, while secretly hoping you never get further than them. One of the hardest lessons you will ever learn is that some of the people you call friend or family are secretly competing with you. They compare your progress with their lack, your favor with their frustration, your joy with their emptiness. And instead of asking you how you made it, instead of learning from your process, they criticize your blessing, they minimize your effort, they suggest you got lucky or had some unfair advantage. They'd rather discredit your progress than confront their own procrastination. And if you're not careful, you'll start shrinking to make them feel better. You'll downplay your accomplishments, keep quiet about your breakthroughs, or hide your joy so you don't make them uncomfortable. But let me tell you something powerful. You do not have to apologize for evolving. You do not have to apologize for being blessed. You do not have to apologize for stepping into a season that they chose not to work for. You've been through too much. You've cried too many tears. You've endured too much pain to now feel guilty about peace, to now feel guilty about progress. You've sacrificed, labored, pushed, and pressed. And when God finally opens a door, you can't be dragging people who are more in love with your struggle than your strength. There are people who were loyal to your broken version. They loved you when you were wounded, insecure, and unsure. But now that you're healing, standing tall, and finding your worth, they don't know how to handle you. Your confidence offends their insecurity. Your light blinds their shadow, and so they disappear, not because you did something wrong, but because you're becoming something greater. Don't chase people who can't celebrate your becoming. Don't beg for support from those who only felt safe when you were broken. Let them go. Let them be. If your victory bothers them, that says more about them than it does about you. Don't you dare put your purpose on pause, trying to make jealous people feel comfortable. You need to be surrounded by people who can clap for you when you win. People who see your shine and aren't intimidated by it. People who believe that your success doesn't threaten theirs. People who push you higher, not pull you back, because the right people will never resent your growth. They'll water it. They'll speak life over your vision. They'll show up not just when you're broken, but when you're blooming. And if someone in your circle is consistently silent when you're winning, but vocal when you're weeping, that's not love. That's control. That's conditional connection, and your purpose is too sacred to be surrounded by people who are secretly praying for your failure just so they can feel better about themselves. You have to start walking away from people who only show up when you're down. People who smile when you're struggling but go quiet when you start succeeding. Those are not your people. Those are weights, not wings, and you cannot fly with bitterness hanging onto your ankles. So let this be the moment you decide, I will no longer keep small-minded people in my life out of habit. I will no longer apologize for doing well. I will no longer seek approval from people who are intimidated by my anointing. If you can't celebrate me, you can't go with me. If you can't clap in my victory, then don't expect me to call you in my valley. You are not arrogant because you refuse to shrink. You are not selfish because you protect your peace. You are not disloyal because you're growing beyond those who never wanted to leave the ground. You are focused. You are chosen. You are rising. And if they can't handle your rise, then they were never meant to be in the room where God is taking you. There is a difference between a full life and a peaceful life. Many people chase noise, movement, crowds, and constant activity, believing that busyness equals success. But what they don't realize is that motion without peace is just chaos in disguise. You can have everything the world calls success, money, attention, followers, influence, and still be drowning in anxiety because you allowed the wrong people into your atmosphere. Peace is not a luxury, it is a necessity, and you must learn to walk away from anyone who consistently disturbs that peace. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Some people bring chaos with them like it's part of their identity. Wherever they go, confusion follows. Wherever they speak, drama erupts. They stir conflict, provoke stress, and manipulate emotions. Not because they're always intentional, but because they're unhealed, unstable, and out of alignment with peace themselves. And if you don't guard your spirit, their unrest will become your unrest. Their confusion will spill over into your clarity. Their storms will soak your stillness. You can't afford to keep allowing people into your space who treat your peace like it's a playground. When God gives you peace, it's a divine gift. It's something you had to fight for. It's something you had to suffer for. It came through seasons of weeping, healing, surrendering, and letting go. You didn't just stumble into peace, you bled for it. You prayed for it. You had to choose peace when your world was falling apart. And now that you have it, you must protect it like your life depends on it. Because it does. There are people who don't know how to function without conflict. They need confusion to feel alive. They thrive on arguments. They live for the drama. If there isn't a problem, they'll create one. And if you let them too close, they'll pull you into emotional whirlwinds you didn't ask to be part of. They'll disrupt your joy, drain your energy, and make you feel like you're walking on eggshells, never knowing what version of them you'll get on any given day. That is not peace. That is emotional warfare disguised as relationship. Some of the most powerful boundaries you'll ever set are silent. Not every disconnection needs a speech. Sometimes you simply create distance. You stop picking up the phone. You stop explaining your moves. You stop allowing someone else's chaos to dictate your mood. You stop granting access to your calm to people who only bring storms. That's not rudeness, that's wisdom. That's stewardship over your soul. Peace is not passive. It is power. It allows you to think clearly. It lets you hear God without interference. It gives you strength to move intentionally. But when you're constantly surrounded by people who stir up conflict, who bring negativity, who gossip, argue, provoke, or bring tension into every space they enter, your soul starts to pay the price. And over time, that price becomes too high. Some of you are tired not because life is too much, but because you've allowed too many unpeaceful people to sit at your table. You let them speak into your life, drain your day, clutter your mind, and cloud your spirit. But today is the day to take inventory. Who brings you peace? Who leaves you feeling grounded? Who pulls the best out of you, not the worst? And who, every time they enter the room, brings noise, confusion, and frustration with them? You deserve to be around people who protect your peace like you protect theirs. People who know how to sit in silence without needing to stir something. People who can be present without bringing pressure. People who understand that sometimes the most powerful thing in the world is a still soul and a calm heart. You don't need people who keep your adrenaline high. You need people who keep your spirit steady. Even Jesus removed himself from the crowds to find solitude. Even the Prince of Peace knew the importance of stepping away to protect his assignment. So if he needed that space to maintain peace, why do we think we can survive constant chaos and still fulfill our calling? You are not obligated to stay in connection with someone who constantly upsets your balance. You don't have to stay in conversations that agitate your spirit. You don't have to entertain energy that exhausts your strength. Your peace is your responsibility, and if someone repeatedly brings more harm than harmony, it's time to step back, because real peace is quiet, it's safe, it's healing, and anything or anyone who disturbs that is working against the very foundation of your destiny. No matter how long they've been in your life, no matter how deep the history goes, if their presence constantly disrupts your clarity, you owe it to yourself and your purpose to walk away. You weren't created to live in emotional chaos. You weren't built to be everybody's fixer. You were made to thrive in peace, to be led by peace, and to protect peace with everything in you. Because when your mind is still, your heart can dream. When your spirit is calm, your gifts can flow. When your world is quiet, your purpose becomes clear. So today, choose peace on purpose, not just peace with people, but peace from people. And if someone consistently costs you your peace, they're too expensive to keep. My brothers and sisters, hear me clearly. Your life is too valuable, your calling too great, and your time too short to be entangled with the wrong people. You don't need more friends. You need right alignments. You don't need more noise. You need peace. You don't need people who tolerate you. You need people who activate you. You must learn when to hold on and when to let go. Some people are only assigned to a season, but you've tried to stretch them into a lifetime. And now the fruit is dying, your purpose is suffocating, your fire is flickering, and the reason isn't because you're weak, it's because you're attached to what's no longer aligned. There's a new season knocking, but it cannot enter until you release what's draining you. God is trying to move, but he won't bless dysfunction. He's not going to anoint chaos. He's not going to fund confusion. And he's not going to elevate you while you're still entertaining people who are poisoning your path. Yes, it's hard to walk away. Yes, it's painful to let go. But obedience is often uncomfortable. Growth is often lonely. but destiny is always worth it. Stop waiting for everyone to approve of your freedom. Stop waiting for closure from people who only gave you chaos. Walk away, not because you're angry, but because you're ready, not because you're bitter, but because you're finally brave. Walk away from people who drain your purpose. Walk away from those who refuse to grow. Walk away from manipulators who confuse guilt with love. Walk away from jealous spirits hiding behind fake smiles. Walk away from anyone who repeatedly disturbs your peace. Because you owe it to your future to protect your atmosphere. You owe it to your healing to guard your space. You owe it to your calling to stay focused. And sometimes the most anointed thing you can do is not preach a sermon, not pray another prayer, but simply walk away. Walk away with your head held high. Walk away with your spirit in alignment. Walk away with your peace restored. Walk away. And watch God release what's been held up, unlock what's been delayed, and reveal what's been waiting on the other side of your obedience. Because when you walk away from what's killing you, you walk into what's called you. Now go, and don't look back.